Yes, lots to discuss on the debate tonight. Only one place to start, of course, though. The Champions League draw happened today, and this is what it meant to the clubs. So we can see the draw in full now. Ajax versus Juventus, Liverpool play Porto, the all-English tie, Spurs versus Man City, and Man United versus Barcelona. Danny, one place to start, all-English tie. A lot of great ties there, but Tottenham versus Man City. Pep Guardiola described this as a 50-50 tie. What do you make of those comments? Do you agree with him, or do you think there's a bit of mind games going on there?
I think he has to say that, doesn't he? If he comes out and says anything else, says, oh, you know, we're clearly the favourites, and then they don't win it, it looks a little bit stupid. But he knows that Tottenham have, on their day, a real threat. They've dropped off in the Premier League. You know, they're going to come in the top four, you would assume. Maybe at the moment they're not in the race for the title anymore. But they're a good side. They've got some good players. And on any given day in a cup competition, Spurs can beat anyone.
Steve, how do you see this one going? We'll look at all the teams in detail later on, but starting with Man City and Spurs, how do you see this over two legs unfolding?
I think over two legs, it has to be in City's favour. I mean, the strength in depth that they've got, the individuals, the team collectively. I mean, Aguero's, final there's Sterling's, sensational form. Sane, Jesus, the list just goes on and on. They all seem like they're chomping at the bit to be playing. They just seem like they're just on a roll. I think the turning point for City as well was the win at Liverpool. I think from then on they've just sort of upped it a notch every sort of go. Confidence is going. But saying that, Spurs on their day can give everyone a test. I remember the game earlier on in the season. Mahrez obviously scored. It was 1-0, but Spurs had some great chances in that game. You know, Harry Kane had the heavy touch that went through. They had some chances to win it. So it's going to be tight. But with Kane, Eriksen, Dele Alli, Son, when they're on fire, they give anyone a go.
Danny, what do you think Pep's priority is this season? Because they're chasing 4 trophies, as we know. They've won the Carabao Cup already. Premier League never been retained for 10 years. 10 years ago, under Sir Alex Ferguson at Man United, the last time the Premier League was retained. Having said that, Man City have never won the Champions League in their history. So what do you think is Pep Guardiola's priority this season?
I think for Pep, I think it's a difficult one. The FA Cup is not really on his radar. I think that's a supplement. Well, if City were to win both cups, the FA Cup and the League Cup, and nothing else, I think it would be considered as a failure this season.
Really?
Well, yeah, because...
Considering the positions.
Yeah, and the squad that they've got and how good they were last season. And that sounds ridiculous. You win 2 trophies and it's been a bad season. Yeah. But I think the fans would maybe go with the league again. They want to retain the league. The Man City fans still haven't fallen in love with the Champions League because of the issues in the past with financial fair play and players not allowed enough players in the squad. They've still not really bought into it. I think the owners want the Champions League. Yeah. That's what they came in to do. So I think it's a toss of a coin. You know, they would probably take one or the other.
Steve, where do you stand on that? What do you think is the priority? Because a lot of Man City fans are very split on this.
Yeah, I personally think it's the league.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I think retaining the league, especially this year, I think with Liverpool giving it a right go and going toe-to-toe with them to the very, very end.
Do you think as a player, though? I think if I was a player, it'd be Champions League. Because that's the one they haven't won.
Because they've already got the Premier League. A lot of them have already got the Premier League.
A lot of them have got a few Premier League. A few Premier Leagues. Yeah. So I think there's a huge split between everybody about fans, owners, players, managers. And again, Pep's not won it with anybody else, the Champions League. Yeah. So he might, that might be his focus.
I personally think they're going to do. I think they're going to do the 4.
Do you?
Yeah, I'm going to throw it out there. Yeah, I really do. I really do. Just because what I said earlier, the strength that they've got in depth. You look at their bench in some games, and you look at the players that come on, and you just think, wow. Other teams obviously watering at the mouth, and they just wanting to wish they had them sort of players. But they've got all the attributes, they've got the mentality, they've got the individuals, they've got the manager to have a clean sweep.
It's an interesting point you make there about, you alluded to the players Spurs had earlier, the Kanes, the Eriksens, the Delis. Spurs' starting 11 is very strong, as you said, as is Man City's. Is the strength in depth what Man City have on the bench? Is that what separates the two for this side, do you think?
Of course it is. Daniel will tell you. How many times have you been a player when you're playing in games and all of a sudden you're in with a shout with getting a point at one of the top teams and the ball goes up and then they make 2 or 3 subs and then you just see a reverse.
And it's also competition for places in training. That's another big part of it, isn't it? That you can't take your foot off. You can't drop your standards by 5% because someone else is coming in at Manchester City. If Tottenham drop their standards a little bit, you're not going to leave out Eriksen. No. You're not going to leave out Kane. Guardiola will drop Aguero. He will leave. He will leave out Sterling. He will leave out Sane. He will leave out De Bruyne. He's got the ability to do that. So that raises the level again for Manchester City.
But there's such a feel-good factor there, which is the biggest key, because obviously when you're winning, it papers over a lot of cracks. But when you get that momentum, everyone just wants to play, whether you're sort of a starting lineup or you're on the bench.
They'll need a massive slice of luck to win all 4, because there will be a refereeing decision, a mistake, or something will happen.
Things out of their control.
Yeah, that they can't. Even though the first leg against Schalke, you know, the VAR penalty and things like that, you can't. Sometimes something's going to happen. They'll need a little bit of luck to win all 4. But as Steve said, when City at the moment, they're just playing game after game after game. They're not going to get any fitter than they are right now. The training's irrelevant. They're not going to change the way they play. They're not going to change too much tactically. Little tweaks game per game, but they know everything. They know their routine. And it's brilliant sometimes where you're not training. It's just game, recover, game, recover, game, recover. And you just... Because all you ever do is just looking forward to the next game. And you're on a winning roll, and it's just like, this is brilliant. This is what we don't want to train. We just want to play matches. So that actually, I think the fact they've got so many games might keep them going through to the end of the season.
And of course, one of those games, one of the two-legged matches, will be at Spurs' new stadium. So finally, it looks like, of course, they've got 2 test events. Then it'll be either the Palace or the Brighton game, will be the first league game. And then, of course, that huge Champions League match at the new stadium. How do you think the new stadium will affect Spurs? Because I expect them to fill it. The atmosphere will be incredible. A lot of Spurs fans, I know, want to get into the new stadium. But will there also be an adjustment period for the players to get used to that surface?
Yeah, of course there is. You, as a footballer, you get into superstitions, you get into rituals, silly things, leaving the house at certain times, driving to the stadium, passing certain roads, things like that. Even on match day preparation, leaving tickets in certain places, knowing that your family are going to be where they're going to be. These little things can play on your mind. Now, if you're saying that you're going to be playing this huge fixture, Manchester City in a Champions League, game, the magnitude of it, the second time that they could possibly be in this new stadium.
They had issues when they first went to Wembley. They've got over that sort of second season, which they weren't obviously wasn't supposed to happen. They weren't supposed to be there. There was issues around that. They struggled a little bit. But as Steve said, there'll be issues around the test events, what might happen, and it's silly little things like, where's my family sitting? Have they got into the car park okay? That first game, there will be issues. Look at what happened to West Ham. All the fans, are they in the right seats? Are they in the right places? Does it create the right atmosphere from the get-go? It might not. And you've got all those silly little concerns in the back of your head that you'll be worrying about, and that will, I think, take an effect on them.
The flip side of that is, Steve, though, is that when Spurs moved to Wembley, they knew that was a temporary home. This is the new stadium that players, fans have seemingly wanted to move into. So the atmosphere is going to be incredible. We expect it to be a sellout for a Man City game. So the fact that they go into such a big game, could it have the reverse effect as well?
I don't see how it will. Listen, there's going to be a carnival atmosphere. It's going to be what the fans have always wanted. The stadium looks stunning. It looks absolutely unreal. But you may as well play at a neutral venue, because City have never played there. Spurs have potentially had one game there before, so they're still learning it. So I don't see where how it's going to benefit them. The fans will love it, yes, but in terms of the playing sense, I can't see how it's going to be a bonus for them.
So over the 2 legs, you're thinking City will just have enough to get past Spurs over the 2 legs?
Yeah, I think over the 2 legs, with Spurs having the home leg, going to City for the second leg. If they're in the game, if they're in the tie, which you'd expect they would be, and I said the front 4 are on form, then they would fancy themselves.
Another big tie, of course, Man United against Barcelona. Now, this was interesting because even though it was drawn as Barcelona versus Man United, you can't have 2 teams from the same city playing the same home and away legs in the same week. So the fixtures have been reversed, and the reason that Man United's fixture was changed is because they finished in a lower league position than Manchester City last season. So Man United will play Barcelona at home in the first leg. So firstly, what do you make of that, Danny, that change, and will that have any impact at all?
Massively.
It will.
I think it's tough on Manchester United because you want to be at home second leg. Generally, the first leg is a little bit more cagey because you've got another game to come, so both teams are a little bit more reserved. Game tends to be a little bit closer, so therefore you want your home game with your home fans second. So you have that advantage going into that, and if you could nick an away goal in the first leg, I think it's a big disadvantage, and I think it's. I don't quite understand why. Again, it's one of those UEFA rules, whatever. But you know, it's a city of 4 million people. There's only an extra sort of 50,000 coming in. It should be able to deal with that.
Steve, big difference for you? Because we saw Man United against PSG, of course, turning that famous lead around.
Yeah.
So a lot of people look at this as Barcelona as one of the strong favourites to win.
Yeah, of
but
course.
Man United must go into this fearing no one.
No,
the recent run of form.
100%. Yeah, especially after the PSG and I suppose the style that they've done it. Obviously, with a last-minute winner, you know, confidence must be high. We know that it's been like that for the previous months since Ole Gunnar's been in there. I look at it quite differently because you look at Old Trafford now and it's buzzing. You know, you can. I've covered a few games there, and you can just sense it. You know, when you get up there, you can just feel it in the air straight away. They'll fancy themselves at home. I think at home on home turf, you know, Old Trafford are used to these massive games. You know, the atmosphere is going to be electric. And then I watched the highlights and clips of Barca with Leon, and Leon sort of exposed them a couple of times defensively. So you got the likes of Rashford, Lukaku, Lingard, Martial. Running at pace at the Camp Nou. Then
I think it's 30 games. Barcelona haven't lost at home. You know, in the Champions League, it's a formidable place to go. Yeah, and that's going to be difficult. And I look at Man United's defence and think, can they keep a clean sheet? I'm not sure they can. You know, Barcelona are still exceptionally good. Of course, they rely on Messi massively. But if Barcelona nick an away goal or two in the first leg, are they going to be able to turn it around again like they did against PSG? I'm not sure they can do it twice this season. I think Barcelona at home will be very, very strong. I think United will have to maybe win the first leg 2-0 if they're going to go through.
I mean, the form of United under Solskjær is incredible. Under Ole Gunnar Solskjær, since he took over, Man United winning more points than any other team in the Premier League. It's been an incredible turnaround for Manchester United since Ole's been at the wheel, as they say.
Ole's at the wheel, yeah. Again, you know, just the atmosphere, not just around Old Trafford, the training ground, it's been sort of widely sort of spread, hasn't it? You know, players, staff, canteen, kit men, everything, the whole mood has just been lifted. A cloud, a sort of a grey cloud has evaporated from around Manchester, and you know they're on fire. You know, Ole Gunnar's at the wheel. You know, I spoke to a few of the players. They go into pretty similar to Man City. They go into every game all wanting to play. Yeah. And I think under Mourinho before, I think there was a few of them that if they weren't selected, they weren't really that bothered.
And of course, Ole back at the Camp Nou. Famous winning goal in United's 99 Champions League. I'm sure the fans will be singing about that. Do you expect Ole Gunnar Solskjær to get the job full-time with all that he's done and achieved with Man United so far this season?
I still think there's no rush at the moment. Ole's not going to go anywhere. Even if another club comes in for him at the moment, he's not going to leave before the end of the season. Manchester United must still be looking at other candidates. They must be thinking about actually recruitment, directors of football. You know, so he's done incredible, you know, and he's put himself right in the frame for the job. But if Pochettino is on their radar, do you still go with sort of longevity of what he's done over sort of a 5-year period, buying in players? That's a big thing. Recruitment is absolutely huge. That's not. So we don't know if Solskjær can do that. There are still a couple of question marks about longevity for him. Remember, Di Matteo went on and won the Champions League, made it a happy camp. Got the Champions League and got sacked a couple of months into the season. Yeah. You know, the summer is huge for Manchester United in terms of recruitment, new signings, keeping hold of players, backroom staff, everything else. Yeah,
I think the new appointment has to be right because you look at the previous three, Moyes, Van Gaal and Jose Mourinho, they haven't worked. And we know what Manchester like. They want to be a stable club, so the new manager that goes in, the club want to see that person. Hopefully, I think he does deserve it. It should be Ole Gunnar, but they want that person to be in there 3, 5, 7, 10 years.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Another tie, Juventus-Ajax. You can't talk about Juventus and not talk about Ronaldo. 5 Champions League trophies already, the hat-trick midweek. I mean...
Ronaldo versus Ajax.
Is that how you see it, Ronaldo v Ajax? Yeah, I mean, it's just the stats in front of me. I could be here all day just reading Ronaldo stats. It's absolutely incredible. And is it... Looking at how Real Madrid have done without him and also how Juventus have done with him, does that illustrate just how much of a phenomenon Cristiano Ronaldo is?
Yes, but I think Zidane saw what was happening to Real Madrid. He knew that the same team 3 years running, that had to sort of fall apart at some point. and he clearly knew that Ronaldo was maybe going to go.
And you think that was one of his reasons for leaving at the time?
Well, look at all the other players. No one's really performed at that level. Everyone's just dropped off a little bit. You know, to keep that 3 years is just incredible. But the same team, every single Champions League final, and then Ronaldo goes and that's 50 goals a season. And Ronaldo it's this time of year where he comes into it. Second half of the season is where he starts to perform. He wasn't brilliant for Real Madrid last season in the first half of the season. Yeah. He's not been brilliant for Juve in the first half of the season. But now, big games, he's the man. He wants to be the centre of attention, and he makes sure he is by scoring goals.
Interesting, Man City favourites. 9-4 favourites for the Champions League. Juventus have got to be up there as well, though, haven't they? With the squad of players they've got, not just Ronaldo, but incredible talent in that squad. Do you see them as one of the contenders, strong contenders to lift the trophy?
Yeah, I mean, defensively, Chiellini, Bonucci, got Mandzukic up front, obviously, with Ronaldo.
Dybala, Pjanic, there's so many of them.
The names go on. It wouldn't surprise me if Juventus go and win it purely down to Ronaldo. You know, he's an absolute phenomenon. You know, what he's done, desire, mentality. He's destined in his own right to leave a legacy that he is the best player that's ever graced a football pitch in the world.
Yeah, we can have a look at the odds there. Got to talk Liverpool against Porto, of course. No disrespect to Porto, currently sits second in the Portuguese league. That is on goal difference to Benfica. But, Danny, was this the best possible draw for Liverpool, do you think, when you bear in mind the other teams they could have drawn?
Oh, definitely. I mean, everyone would have gone secretly, Porto, that'd be a nice one. Of course, they're a tough side, and they, on any given day, they might cause an upset, you know, quite possibly. They could have an outstanding, defensively strong. Clearly, you don't get to a quarter-final of Champions League without being a decent side. They could cause them problems. You don't really expect them to. No. But then you've got to look at the semi-final, you know, where they play sort of Man United or Barcelona. That's a tough side. They don't want Barcelona because we know, you know, all their qualities. But Manchester United as well, with that rivalry, the Champions League semi-final, and they would be clear favourites, I think, in that, because of the league position and all the rest of it. It's not an easy side to draw for them.
Porto are no mugs. You know, obviously it's a repeat fixture from last season's Champions League draw, isn't it? Quarterfinals where Liverpool won 5-0 over the two legs. But, you know, look at what Porto have done. They were 2-1 down against Roma in the previous one, come back 1-4-3. So, you know, they've got to be respectful of their opposition there.
Spoke about Man City earlier. Liverpool, of course, in the title race and Champions League. What do you think the priority is for Liverpool? Because it's a huge season for them, isn't it? Do they look at that?
It's got to be.
We spoke about it with Man City. You both agree it's the Premier League for them?
Well, they've won the Champions League relatively recently. They got to the final, obviously, last year. The league is the thing for Liverpool, because everyone throws that back at them. Well, you've not won it for 30 years, 29, or whatever it is. That's the one that they need to get that monkey off their back. You know, they need that Premier League trophy. You know, since Liverpool last won the top league, Leeds have won it. You know, Blackburn have won it. Leicester have won it. Liverpool need to put themselves back in that bracket, and I think that is the league for them has to be the most important.
How do you think the draw has affected the Premier League title race? Because we see so many pundits mixed on whether, if Liverpool were to, unfortunately, get knocked out of the Champions League, say, that might aid their Premier League title chance because it's less games, or do you see it momentum?
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah, it's not.
You think it's the other way around?
Yeah, it's momentum. You just want game after game. It doesn't matter who is in front of. Doesn't matter if it's Champions League with one of the best teams in Europe, or you're going to go into the Saturday, and no disrespect, it's against one of the lower oppositions in the Premier League. Once you get momentum and that wheel's going, you just want it.
That feeling of you've been knocked out of the Champions League and then you've got to go and play on a Saturday or a Sunday afterwards. You don't really want to play in that game. You know, and all of a sudden, all the life has been sucked out, all the emotions of the Champions League, and it's like, oh, we've been knocked out now. We were so desperate, and you've got to try and raise. So you can easily get knocked out of the Champions League and lose your next league game. I think it's to the detriment.
We can have a look at the fixtures. So these are the remaining fixtures for Manchester City and Liverpool. This is the next 8. This is up to April the 26th. So just to illustrate how many games they have in a short period of time. Interesting block of fixtures there, Steve, for Manchester City. 5 games in approximately 15 days. 3 against Spurs as well. So I know we've spoken about that fixture, but that's got to play a big effect for both the Champions League but also the Premier League title race, the fact they're playing the same team 3 times. Looking at that, who do you think's got the more favourable next 8?
Well, obviously there's more fixtures in there for Man City, but what I will say is Man City could field a whole new 11 and still be very, very strong. So they've got the squad capable enough to deal with them fixtures. You know, you look at Liverpool, they do face Spurs at home and Chelsea at home, which obviously is a big advantage because Liverpool's home form is very, very good. But Man City again, you know, as I said, when they went to Liverpool and they beat them, they've just raised the bar again, and they've sort of said to Liverpool, "You've raised us, we'll raise you, and we'll keep raising you again and again, and it's down to you to come and catch us."
There will be slip-ups. Both teams will slip. Yeah. Both teams aren't going to win every single game now till the end of the season. There will be a draw, there might be a loss. It's just, again, it can be unpredictable. Who expected Man City to lose against Newcastle after going 1-0 up in the first...
And Crystal Palace as well. Sometimes the unpredictable...
First 30 seconds or whatever, you know, you think, oh, that's it, City are cruising now, and they lost that game. Liverpool have drawn some games where you think, oh, they should have won that. There will be... It'll flip a couple of times before the end of the season, but City have got 2 massive away games against, obviously, Spurs and Man United. They could be key. Liverpool's 2 big games, both at home. So that you would suggest that might favour Liverpool, but as I said, either of them will slip up with a draw against one of the so-called weaker sides.